I am Dr. Mindy Pelz, and I am incredibly excited to share with you a personal journey that I've been on with the ketogenic diet that really translated into teaching women how to use different variations of keto as they move through the menopause journey. So like many of you have probably experienced, there are so many benefits of the ketogenic diet. Yet, we are not meant to be, especially when I say we, I say women over 40 are not meant to be in the ketogenic diet all the time, day in and day out. So I want to sort of take you on a journey that I've personally been on, and then I want to give you some real specifics on how you can make some really simple variations to the ketogenic diet so that you're not just getting the incredible benefits that keto can help you with, but that you're also balancing sex hormones and making sure that the menopause experience can go as smoothly as possible. So let me start off by sharing my screen. Here I go. And bear with me as I put my PowerPoint in power mode here. So the title of this is the Keto Solutions for Perimenopause. And just so we're all clear, I really consider perimenopause to be over 40. I know some people consider it to be under 35 or over. But really, as you'll see, that it's about 40 that we start to enter into our menopause years or our perimenopause years. So this is a picture of me on my 43rd birthday. And the reason that it's significant is because when I turned 40, I was literally in the best shape of my life. I was paleo at the time, interesting enough. And I was fit, I was strong, I was happy. Like I thought at 40 that the answer to health was eat good quality food, eat paleo, and work out a whole bunch. And you could fit in your skinny jeans and you would love the scale, the number on the scale, and all would be well. And this was my 43rd birthday where everything changed for me. I went from this place of feeling so powerful, so limitless, so healthy, to very quickly waking up every night, almost every night, multiple times a night. And often I would wake up drenched in sweat. It became so bad, I'd have to wake my husband up and get him out of bed and change the sheets. I'd have to change my clothes multiple times a night. And this went on for a really long period of time. I quickly learned that if I brought a sleeping bag next to my bed and I could change my clothes and slip into the wet bed in a sleeping bag, and I wouldn't have to wake my husband up. Like it just was really it just struck me out of nowhere. And that soon led to a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. And I'm not a depressed person. I have been trained in the school of make lemonade out of lemons. And I didn't really understand depression at the level that I was experiencing soon after this birthday. And it was startling to me. And so I found myself actually one day at my kids' science fair around this time. I mean, this is why I always show this picture. It was really a pivotal moment for me where I was looking at a science project, and standing next to me was a woman who was a very respected OB in our community. And I just happened to turn to her and say, hey, I'm having all these symptoms. I've got hot flashes. I'm gaining weight. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. I'm not sleeping. Can you help me understand what this is about? And I honestly thought she would turn to me and say, oh, you need to get on this medication, or you need to do this one thing that's going to change this experience for you. But instead, what she said to me just absolutely changed the way that I look at the menopause journey. She turned to me and she said, Mindy, I have a practice full of women with these symptoms, and my medical textbooks have failed me. I have no idea how to help these women. And then knowing that I was into nutrition and detox and had a holistic slant, she turned to me and said, what are you doing? Teach me on how I can help these people. And it was such a shock for me that I left that night and I thought, okay, so here is an honest answer from the medical community that there's no solution here. So I need to take the solution into my own hands. I need to look at lifestyle and really get a better understanding of what I can do so that I can help myself through this process. And so what I discovered, and this was really from 43 to where I am today, which is 50, I really discovered that there were three major things that I had to change and I had to really look at if I was going to start getting my hormones under control. And the first one, is one we're not going to talk about today, but I need to throw it out there, is that toxins really reveal themselves as hormones go crazy. So there was definitely a toxic piece to my hormonal shift. And I now, after guiding thousands of perimenopausal women through the process, I realized that this is pretty key. Toxins play a big part. I also realized that I needed to start regulating my blood sugar. So I switched from paleo to keto, and realizing that eating meat, tons and tons of meat, and high sugared fruits and vegetables was still too much blood sugar, was spiking my blood sugar too much. And I really switched to keto. I started learning fasting techniques, which were incredible. And I'll share with you how I stumbled upon the third thing, which is the keto variations. And that there are times for women in general, but especially perimenopause women, there are times that it's appropriate for us to do keto, and there's times that we actually have to step out of the ketogenic diet. And if you have had incredible results with the ketogenic diet, it's scary. You don't want to step out of it because it gives you so much relief. But I'm going to show you a really smart way you can do it, where what I say is you can have your keto cake and eat it too. So I'll show you what that looks like. So the first thing, and this is just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a background on how I teach and how I look at things. I really like to look at the big picture and then kind of break it down into the details. And so the first thing that I would tell you is that you have to realize that at 40, there is something major happening in a woman's body. And it really stems around the idea that the ovaries are done with their job. They are going into retirement. And so around 40, your ovaries will start to slow down. Now, if you stop and you think about like the impact of that, it would be like, what if all of a sudden your stomach was like, hey, I'm not going to digest food anymore. I'm just going to pass it on to the small intestine. Like, you would have some major digestive issues, and you would probably need to make some changes if your stomach wasn't going to do its job anymore. Well, the same thing is happening with our body, with our ovaries, is that it literally is a 10 to 15 year process. One of the myths that I didn't really realize as I was going through this experience was that I thought it was like a switch that got turned on and off. Like, one day you're like perimenopause, and then whoop, the switch got turned off, and the next day you're menopausal. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. It's a 10 to 15 year process. I'll show you some charts here in a moment of how our hormones just go completely awry. And what I really want you to realize is that other organs are going to have to pick up the slack. And the organ that picks up the slack when the ovaries take over are the adrenal glands. And this is crucial because with the ketogenic diet, we can get, and it depends. There's so many different types of the ketogenic diet, but one of the variations we see so much in my online community is this one meal a day, fasting a bunch. We're like all in it for the ketones, but we forget that your adrenals they're having to work with these sex hormones. And if we put too much added stress onto them, now they're having to deal with the added stress of being in a fasted state, plus they're having to make sex hormones. So it's really something we have to take into the big picture, that there are times for us to really, we can stress those adrenals out a little more and do keto and fasting and do great. And there's times that we don't. And I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So this is one of my absolute favorite pictures, because I don't know about you guys, if you're watching this, you're probably, perimenopausal, or you're living with somebody who's perimenopausal. But let's start off by looking at the estrogen lines. This is literally what your estrogen is doing, from the first part being over here on the far left, the perimenopause years, going all the way through. You are on an up and down roller coaster with estrogen. And what I really think is important for women to understand is that as these estrogen fluctuations happen, that estrogen changes can lead to insulin resistance. So it's awesome because the ketogenic diet helps so well with this insulin resistance. But as you'll see again, there's a dark side to it. The second thing I want you to notice is the dotted line. The dotted line is progesterone. So progesterone is our calming hormone. This is the hormone that makes us feel relaxed. This is the hormone that allows us to sleep. This is the hormone that we need to shed the uterine lining so that we can have a normal cycle. And as this hormone declines, what we're seeing is that you get more anxiety, you get more spotting, you get these crazy periods. And what's so frustrating is that we just clump it all together as menopause symptoms. But if you do the keto variations I'm going to teach you, you will see that your progesterone levels will actually stay very even. They won't tank, and I'll show you how they tank and how do we untank them. But I never thought about progesterone prior to menopause. I was really like, in my book, I have a chapter called Dear Progesterone. I'm sorry I took you for granted, because I literally felt like I never thought about it until it tanked. Now, let me point this one thing out, because you'll see it in future slides. So when we go keto, we can help with the insulin resistance that estrogen fluctuations can cause. But when we go very low sugar or low glycemic index, and we're in those ketogenic states, we decline progesterone even more. So for example, progesterone building foods are foods like beans and squashes and potatoes and tropical fruits. My gosh, that's like a 4-letter word for a keto person who's in the keto world. It's like tropical fruits and citrus fruits. So you'll see as I show you a cycle, a woman's cycle, if we're not leaning into those foods, then progesterone will decline even more. And you have to remember that progesterone and estrogen are like a teeter-totter. So when progesterone goes down, estrogen's going to go up. And when estrogen goes up, insulin resistance goes up. So now we go in and we start doing more keto to bring that insulin resistance down, but we tank progesterone even more, and we end up on this cycle where we can never get our sex hormones under control. So burn this image in your brain, because this is what is happening to us as we move to our 40s and beyond. So this menopause journey, and I really use these terms just so you guys are all clear. I use the terms perimenopause to mean anything over 40. I use menopause to mean the woman who's like, yeah, I get a period and then 90 days later I might get another one, and doesn't know where she is. And then I use postmenopause for the woman who is like, I've gone a year without a cycle. And I want to address all three of those. But just so you're clear, when I use menopause, it's like that person who doesn't know where they are in this journey. But if you are over 40, what I want you to realize is that there's an incredible opportunity here, because menopause is a mirror. And what happens to so many women is that all of a sudden that mirror will start to reveal imbalances in the body that were there. This was me. I mean, I was paleo, probably definitely not getting into ketosis because I was eating so much protein and so many root vegetables and doing a lot of things that were spiking my blood sugars. So all of a sudden I started gaining weight. So there was like that imbalance revealed itself. Toxicity revealed itself. The other thing that I hear from so many women, and this is exactly what happened to me, is that our old strategies don't work. I mean, this is where, like, I wish we were in a live audience. Like, whenever I say this, I get so many women that are like, yeah, thank you. Like, finally somebody understands me. But it's like those tricks we used before. I mean, my trick was, I've got a few extra pounds. Let me go run a few extra miles. Let me, just do a little more paleo, get off the grains. And those tricks weren't working for me anymore. I started noticing I couldn't get the things to budge. I couldn't get my sleep to improve with the tricks. I couldn't get the belly fat to go away. Like, the things that I used to do weren't working. And then I think the most important part, and why I'm so vocal about this right now, is that we hear so much about the story of the 40-year-old woman who gets a breast cancer diagnosis or dies of a heart attack. But do you know that 70% of these diseases are happening to women postmenopausal? So ovarian, breast cancer, the cardiovascular disease, these are happening to women after menopause. So one of my passions in life is, how do we get to women at 40 and teach a lifestyle that has to shift in order to shift those hormones so that she doesn't end up with a diagnosis in her 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I think that's really pivotal. So just basic, let's just be clear that the ketogenic diet can help with so many things. And I would say the biggest things I've seen for myself and I've seen for my patients is that just straight keto without any variation is incredible for weight loss. And if you have any weight gain issues, you guys have probably already experienced that. It's also incredible for memory loss. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but how many times prior to keto, I would crash at 3 p.m. I would be in conversations where I'd lose track of what I was saying. I lacked focus. So memory loss and brain fog. The ketones are neuroprotective. So when we create ketones, they can actually go in and start to heal damaged neurons and can really give you an insane, limitless feeling. The mental clarity, as many of us know, is incredible. And then also straight ketones in the ketogenic diet I've seen help hot flashes a lot. And so just straight out ketosis and being in a state of ketosis can have a dramatic effect on those 4 things. I also want to be incredibly clear before I launch into the variations that straight keto, and I'll explain to you guys here in a moment what my version of keto is, because I know there's also a lot of debate of like, what's your macros and what does that all look like? But straight ketosis, or being in a state of ketosis the majority of time, absolutely can help with these hormonal cancers. It can help with heart disease. They call Alzheimer's diabetes of the brain. It can help with dementia, and it can help with, of course, diabetes. So I love just the basic understanding of keto for these things that plague women after they go through menopause. Hands down, incredible. But here's where it becomes really harmful. And this was my experience and what I see in our resetter group, where we fast hundreds of thousands of people together every month, is that if you are doing keto all the time, you risk the chance of tanking your progesterone, you can tank your testosterone, you can tank your DHEA, and you increase the demand on your adrenals. And this makes for an incredibly rough menopause experience. So I'll show you here, this is my personal Dutch test. And prior to this test, I actually was 100% keto, 100% fasting. And this is why I want to show you this, is that I was like, when I found keto at 45, I was like all into keto, all into fasting all the time. And then my anxiety started getting worse, and my periods started just going haywire, especially a lot of spotting. I started noticing that I was having a lot of, like, not to get too graphic, but a lot of hemorrhaging. Like when I would actually bleed, it was like, oh my gosh, I probably should stay home that day that I started bleeding. Like it did not feel like a normal cycle. So I ran a Dutch test on myself, which I absolutely love the Dutch test. And if you haven't done a Dutch test, I really encourage you to do it. And this was me after a year of straight keto and fasting, no variation. So you can see here that in the far left, my estrogen was that of a postmenopausal woman. My progesterone was that of a postmenopausal woman. And holy cow, look at my testosterone was completely tanked. Well, if you look down here, you can also see that my total DHEA production was totally tanked. So what was going on here? It's, for starters, and I'll show you in a moment, I wasn't doing anything to bring progesterone up. But one of the keys that was happening here is that DHEA is the precursor for making cortisol, it makes progesterone, and it makes testosterone. And our body is pre-programmed for stress. So anytime we are stressed, it is always going to prioritize cortisol, making of cortisol over everything else. So whether we like it or not, the keto and fasting lifestyle has a part of it that can elevate cortisol. And so between me doing so much fasting, me doing so much keto, I just kept elevating my cortisol levels to the point that I didn't have any DHEA left to make progesterone or to make testosterone. And my symptoms were matching that. I have redone the test. I should have shown you a post-test, but I can tell you now that my progesterone levels have come back up. My testosterone levels have come back up using just the variations I'm going to show you here in a moment alone. So here are some things that the perimenopausal woman needs to consider so that you don't end up down the path that I ended up. And again, this is not just unique to me. I'm seeing this in our resetter group quite a bit. But a perimenopausal woman needs to think about the time of month. So you need to think about when to do keto. You also need to think about when not to do keto. So what time of the month is it going to hurt you to do keto? I really want to point out that there are two ways to get ketones. You can manipulate your macros or you can fast. So that becomes important because as I take you through a typical cycle. The fourth thing I want you to realize is that when we go low keto, oftentimes we have to take out vegetables. And this is a massive problem for the perimenopausal woman because we have a microbiome, a set of bacteria within our gut that's called the estrobolome. And the estrobolome's job is to break down estrogen. So if we're not eating vegetables, if we're just doing, extremely low keto, we are not feeding our estrobolome and we are not going to break down estrogen. If we do not break down estrogen, we are at risk for these hormonal cancers post-menopause. So again, I'll show you my version of keto here in a moment. And then the other thing that I really hope you're going to gain from this talk afterwards is that it is massively important for the perimenopausal woman to step out of keto. And you need to have hormone building days, and I'll show you what that looks like. So these are the considerations. Take a picture of this screen. These are like the absolutes that perimenopausal women need to think about. So let's start with this idea. What does it look like for the perimenopausal woman to do ketosis or to do the ketogenic diet? The first thing I want to point out is that if you're brand new to the ketogenic diet, I want you to focus on your number one step needs to be, can you get into ketosis? So I'm going to show you two steps. The first step is, can you get into ketosis? And you need to do that with a more traditional ketogenic diet. So don't go and trick yourself out with all the hormone changing ketogenic styles I'm going to show you here in the second step if you haven't mastered the first step. It is imperative that your body's metabolically flexible, that it's made that switch, your liver knows how to make ketones. This is incredibly important. And in my book, the most basic way you get into ketosis is you practice fasting. I think at least 15 hours of fasting a day, sometimes longer, will really help you get those ketones. You've got to be low carb. And then what many people miss with getting into ketosis is that I say low protein, it's really mild protein. But so often when we hear that we've associated the ketogenic diet with a low carb experience, we don't ever look at the protein. We ignore the protein. But protein raises blood sugar too. So if you're listening to this and you've never even gotten into ketosis, I'm going to encourage you to play with these three principles, because sometimes I found in the work we do that it's the protein that's throwing people out of a ketogenic state, and they're trying to manipulate the carbs. They're trying to throw more fat at it. And really what they need to do is fast a little longer and work on their protein amounts. So if you're stuck at this first step, please remind yourself that there's many ways to get into ketosis. Okay, now here's the challenges, like I said with me, that if you're full-time keto and you're over 40, that you may have more spotting, more irregular periods. We see people, oh my gosh, in my resetter community, so many women are losing their hair. And they're like, I love what the scale says. I love how I feel, but I'm losing my hair. So that's a sign you're doing keto too much. Many women that we work with will tell us that when they first went into keto, it really helped with their hot flashes. But now that they've been one meal a day, now that they've been keto all the time, now their hot flashes are going up. So we'll talk about that. That's a sign you need to do some keto variation. And then my sign, the big thing for me, was anxiety. And it's the kind of anxiety that's really irrational. It's like you're sitting on your couch. This is my personal experience. Is like I'm sitting on my couch and I just can't flip and relax. Like the first time I realized that my progesterone might be an issue, I was literally on vacation with my family, watching the sunset as my kids were playing in the ocean. And I was like, I couldn't relax. I felt this incredible sense of dread. I felt like something horrible was going to happen to us, even though we were having this incredible moment. That's a real sign that your progesterone may be low and that it could be contributed to from the ketogenic diet. So once you've mastered ketosis, now you're ready to start to do step 2, which is eating for your cycle. So let's talk about your cycle for a moment, because I will be the first one to admit, as I sit here at 50, to tell you that when I went to go look at how to make some adaptations to my hormones, I literally had to go back to like understanding my cycle again. And there are a couple of things that become incredibly important when you want to apply the ketogenic diet. The first is that right here at this spike of estrogen is what I will consider to be like day 12. So day 12 of your cycle is when you're going to get the most peak of estrogen. This increase of estrogen is what will stimulate ovulation. And after that, your estrogen will start to decline. Now you get a little peak of it here at day 21, but as you can see, it's the highest at about day 12. So good news for the ketogenic woman is that in order to build estrogen, foods that we would lean into are typically keto foods. So our nuts and our seeds, like pistachios, have quite a bit of, can help you make more estrogen. Seed oils, I'm a big fan of flaxseed oils, even olive oil, like all your MCT oils, all those oils, evening primrose, those will all be helpful if you wanted to mega dose them here at day 12. And lean into the nuts, lean into the seeds. Grass-fed beef, now would not be the time. Day 12 would not be the time to moderate your protein. A grass-fed beef steak is going to really help with estrogen development. So then at about day 14, you can see that you start to build progesterone, and progesterone will peak at about day 21. This is pivotal for the perimenopausal woman because this progesterone is already declining. So you're not at 45 getting the same amount of progesterone that you got at 25. So on day 21 of your cycle, it is imperative that you step out of ketosis and that you lean into more progesterone building foods. And I will keep repeating those because those of us that love the ketogenic diet, we struggle with this understanding because beans, many people haven't had beans, squashes, all kinds of potatoes. When I did that Dutch test, oh my gosh, I hadn't had a potato. I hadn't had beans in years when I did that Dutch test. And a large reason that my progesterone tanked so much on that Dutch test was because I wasn't paying attention to this day 21. Day 21 till the time you bleed, which is usually around day 28, it is really important that you lean into those foods. And I'll show you, I have a slide with the picture on them, and that you are purposely stepping out of ketosis. So the name of the game on day 21 is not to be in ketosis. The name of the game needs to be, let me make myself some progesterone. And in order to do that, I need to step out of the ketogenic diet. And I'll show you, again, some variation on that. Now, when I started to understand this, tracking my cycle. And I use a Clue app is what I use. And the funny thing that I laugh at is that, here I was, now we're talking like 46, 47, and I'm tracking my cycle more than I did when I was trying to get pregnant in my 20s. This was the first time I started tracking my cycle. I do it even now, and I use it to help me understand when I can do keto and when I shouldn't do keto. So when I look and I see that I'm around day 23, day 21, I lean into the progesterone building foods. So I wanted to give you guys an example of what a typical 28-day cycle would look like. Now, before I kind of go through it and repeat it again, I want to point out that the challenge for the perimenopausal woman is that we don't really have a 28-day cycle. So we'll talk about some variations there. And again, I wish you all were in front of me so we could answer some situational questions, because there are variations of this. So I'm going to give you the basic that I have found have worked for most perimenopausal women. The first to know is that if you're tracking your cycle on the first day you start bleeding, day 1 till about day 11, you can go as low keto as you want. You can fast as much as you want. So if you want to do a 3 to 5 day water fast, this would be a phenomenal time to do it. And you're going to find as you start to do this eating for your cycle, that it's easier to do these longer fasts on day 1 through day 11. Much easier. Now, once day 12 hits, for some of you, you're going to need to lean into more hormone building foods. So I would say start by leaning into the ones I mentioned, because this is where estrogen spikes. So lean in more oils. Now, this isn't going to necessarily take you out of a ketogenic state, but lean into more nuts, more seeds, higher amounts of grass-fed beef. Those kind of things are going to be massively important to you for these couple of days. Once day 15 hits, day 15 to about day 21, you can go back and do all the keto you want. You can do all the fasting you want. Again, if you're looking to go into a 3 to 5 day water fast and you still have a cycle, do them between day 11 and day 1 and 11, and between day 15 and 21. But once day 21 hits, I really encourage you to lean into the progesterone building foods. And I have a slide here with all the different ones that are my personal favorite. So this 28-day I call it Ketobiotic, and I'll explain why I do that in a moment. But this 28-day hormone period, if I've had so many women that have entered into our world who have been fasting and keto, losing their cycle, extreme menopause symptoms, and all we do is apply this 28-day cycle, and boom, they're now getting the benefits of keto, and they're getting their hormones back, and they're moving through menopause more smoothly. So for me, I use the term ketobiotic. And the only reason that I do that is because I really want to emphasize that your microbiome. And when we go low keto to me is 10 to 20 grams of carbohydrates. We often have to give up vegetables, and that is not good at any point in that 28-day cycle. It is not very good for perimenopausal women to not take good care of their microbiome. So I put all the women in my clinic, when we go keto, these are my macros: 50 grams net carbs, 50 grams protein, and working to get over 60% good fat. And I have people use Carb Manager. It's just one that I've used for years to measure that. The reason we have to eat vegetables and get these, especially greens, which shouldn't take you out of shouldn't make your net carbs go too high, is because we need our estrobolome to be healthy to break down estrogen. Your liver, so the liver is such an important organ for the perimenopausal woman, that it is not only helping you make ketones, but it's metabolizing, helping break down cortisol. It has an effect on T4 to T3 conversion of your thyroid hormone, and it's breaking down your estrogen. And in order for your liver to function well, it needs foods like Brussels sprouts and cauliflowers and broccoli. It needs a lot of cruciferous vegetables. It needs a lot of greens. So if we're too low in our keto and we're forgetting about this biotic piece, then you really, again, are setting yourself up for more disease. And then the last piece of the gut that's so important is that when you're feeding these foods to your gut that I mentioned, all those vegetables, is you're helping build neurotransmitters. And I don't know about you, but every menopausal woman I've met needs a little more GABA. GABA is the calming hormone. And so if you are starving those neurotransmitters out, then you are not going to get you're not going to have the GABA that calms your brain. The other interesting experience that I've had with my own self and with a lot of women that went low keto and avoided vegetables is that it can tank your dopamine. And what I hear from a lot of women is, I just don't experience joy like I used to experience it. And I have no reason for that. I love my life. I should be joyful, but I'm not getting the same deep pleasure out of life that I used to. And that could be because of not feeding your estrobolome, and you're not feeding your microbiome to help you make these neurotransmitters. So I just, again, can't emphasize that enough. Okay, so what are my favorite hormone building foods? And I've quickly become a huge fan of seed oils, all different kinds of seed oils. You can do that at any point in your 28-day experience. It's not going to take you out of ketosis, but I point it out to you because you need these seed oils now more than ever. Remember, at 40, these organs your ovaries are kicking out. And so your lifestyle has to change. And one of the things is, you might have gotten away without these seed oils in your 30s, but in your 40s, you need them. And you'll know that if you're not getting enough oil, that you'll see it in your face. You'll see it in like your skin dries out. You'll start to see it in like, you'll get injured more when you're working out because you don't have the lubrication that estrogen and these oils can give you in your joints. You can see it in your hair, where your hair just doesn't have that fluffiness that it used to have. So I can't emphasize seed oils enough at this time for you. And this is really across the whole, this isn't just in the 28-day period. I'm also a huge fan of raw nuts and seeds. That's also going to keep you in ketosis, but all different kinds, like macadamia nuts and pistachios and walnuts. I mean, we try to do as many different nuts in our household as we can, always raw. Lots of grass-fed beef, and definitely leaning a lot more lately into more organ meats. Those will help as well. You can mix it with your grass-fed beef. So those first three, you might be saying, well, I do that already. It's not a big deal. That won't take you typically out of ketosis. But the next ones will. And these are the ones you're going to want to purposely do on that day 21. So potatoes, squashes, all kinds of squashes. I go to my farmer's market and I look for the most bizarre squash. Like in my search for progesterone building foods, I discovered honey nut. It's a honey nut squash. I don't know if you guys ever had one, but they're like the most amazing thing. They're little. I just cut them in half, put them in the oven, cook them with a ton of butter. And they get so soft, you can almost pick them up and eat them, and they're sweet. And to me, they're better than a butternut squash. So, which is also really great. So butternut, acorn, honey nut, spaghetti squash, as many squashes as you can get. With potatoes, you want to do all different kinds of potatoes. Like there's incredible research showing that a purple potato feeds the good bacteria in your lower intestinal tract. So when we do potatoes, we do all different kinds, all your different kinds of sweet potatoes. Variation is important. And then rice. Now, let me just make a comment about rice. White rice is not necessarily going to be the greatest for you. It definitely doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it. I don't even really think there's any benefit of white rice. So when I'm talking about rice, I mean more brown rice. I mean more wild rice. So if you're going to lean into rice, please don't lean into white rice. And then quinoa. Quinoa is an incredible, all different types. Red quinoa, white quinoa is great. Yep, tropical fruits. Now you have to decide, and I'll talk to those of you that right now that are like, hell no, I'm going to gain weight. There's no way I'm eating a banana. Don't worry, we'll talk about that in a moment. And then citrus fruits. So you can, I started eating oranges again. Oranges are great for bringing both progesterone and estrogen up. But I know when to eat them. I know that I have my times that I eat them, and I have my times that I don't. It's honestly, let me go back to this for a second. If you can grasp this, it is the most fun that I have ever had with a diet, because I get to be keto during these points in during my month, and I get the limitless feeling, and then I get the variation of all of these foods. So it's really, as you learn the cadence with your cycle, it really becomes a fun experience. Okay, so let's just address the elephant in the room, which usually is, okay, I don't want to gain weight. So if you're wondering that right now and you still have a cycle, I would tell you that that moment you feel the perimenopause or the menstrual symptoms come on. So you start spotting, and some of you spot and then 2 weeks go by and you don't have a period. So if you start spotting, if you start having extreme irritability, like you're going to kill everybody around you, if your husband looks at you the wrong way and you want to take him down, like those are moments that your hormones are off. Those are not your circumstance. So when those symptoms appear, you're going to want to switch over into these hormone building days. So you might say, hey, I'm not going to worry about day 21. I'm just going to wait until my symptoms get bad enough. So maybe on day 25, and then I'll lean into these hormone building days. So instead of a week long, you might take 3 days and just do the first 3 days before your cycle, and that might be your hormone building moment. And the rest of the month you do keto. So we've seen some good success with that for people who don't want to gain weight. The other issue, if you don't want to gain weight, is go back to that frame that I showed you where day 1 through day 11, you can do keto and fasting. And then day 15 through about day 21, you can do keto and fasting. On those days, go low keto. Those would be the moments to go extremely low keto. I'm a huge fan for weight loss of the 36-hour fast. So start doing more 36-hour fasts on those times. That can really help you so that you are being more disciplined in the times that you don't need to be building these hormones. So that really answers the second one, which is what if I don't want to do 7 days of hormone building? So you're just going to have to play with your cadence and your rhythm. The third common question we get is, well, how long do I have to do this for? And that's really till you become postmenopausal, in my opinion. And then I'll show you what we recommend for postmenopausal women. But my journey was lots of keto and fasting to now I eat for my cycle. And anytime I feel like my progesterone is tanking again, I will lean into these longer hormone building days. So it's up to you. What most people find is the feedback we get is they were like, I finally found a way I can do keto and feel good and get all the results. So if that's you, just keep doing this variation until you decide you don't want those results anymore, and then you can change it. And then the last thing is, what do we do if you're postmenopausal? So here's something to remember is that your hormones are all declining, so they never come back. Like you can see this little chaos of estrogen up until about 50, but your testosterone and your progesterone over 50 are not coming back. So your testosterone, you can kind of keep up a little bit higher, but progesterone for sure. So I always tell the postmenopausal woman that she can fast whenever she wants. She can do low keto whenever she wants. Like, she doesn't have to think about a cycle, which is awesome, but she still has to think about progesterone. And so you're going to need to throw some progesterone hormone building days in. And we recommend something called a 5-1-1 variation to our postmenopausal women. This is great for men, but this is really what we encourage postmenopausal women to do. Or if you are, went into menopause really early because you had went in for surgical reasons, and you're 42 years old, you would follow something like this. 5 days a week, you're going to do keto and fasting, and you can do any version of keto you want. You saw my version. I like the 50-50-60, so I can still get vegetables in there. And you can do any kind of fast you want. There's incredible research showing, 13 to 15 hours is incredible for women. Just that alone has a lot of benefits. If you guys follow me on social media, you know I'm a huge fan of the 17-hour fast for autophagy reasons. So you could do that in these 5 days. But 5 days out of the week, just do whatever version of keto and fasting you want. Now, 1 day a week, I really want to encourage you to elongate your fast. And the reason that this is important is that there is great research showing out of MIT, this was research done on humans, which is really powerful, that at 24 hours of fasting, you reboot your intestinal stem cells. And in that rebooting of those intestinal stem cells, you will start to repair your microbiome. Now remember, the menopausal woman, the postmenopausal woman, the perimenopausal woman needs that microbiome to be healthy. So along with feeding it all the vegetables, you can really help your microbiome by throwing in a 24-hour fast. And we recommend once a week. Work on your fast training muscle, train that muscle so that 1 day a week, you can get that reboot of those intestinal stem cells. If you have candida, if you have SIBO, any digestive condition, this has been so critical for intestinal healing. So I want you to 1 day a week go into this place where you're going to go into a longer fast. When you break that fast, you can break it with any version of keto you want. But here's the thing that the postmenopausal woman needs to consider. You've got to do 1 day a week of hormone building. And I've already explained what hormone building is. This is where you would step out of ketosis. Now, I want to just point something out, that the human body was not meant to be in a state of famine all the time. We were meant to cycle in and out of feast famine cycling. Now, if we go back and we think about the cave person day, they went through periods where they would go long cycles without food. And so the body was programmed to make these ketones. And then they would make a kill and they'd bring all the meat back, or it was summer and they had access to berries and they would go into a state of feasting. So for the postmenopausal woman, it is really important, if you're getting great results with keto, the blessing is you don't have to think about where you throw this hormone building day is in. You don't have to think about when to do a longer fast, but you do still need hormone building days. And I recommend at least once a week. On this day, I would tell you no fasting. Cut the fasting out. You're going to enjoy the day, lean into the hormone building foods, bring yourself out of ketosis, and then the next day you can go right back into ketosis again. And this has been truly a miraculous cycle that has worked not only for me, but for our clients, for our resetter community. It's been really cool. So to sum this all up, here are the basic principles. Keto, is it going to work for the perimenopausal woman? The answer is yes. And that is like a hell yes. That is like a big yes. But then there's a little asterisk. And the asterisk is just not all the time. Okay, second major principle I hope you got from this is that you want to eat for your cycle. And what's really fun when you start to learn to eat for your cycle is a lot of people say, well, shouldn't all women be eating for their cycle? And the answer is absolutely yes. And why were we never taught how to eat for our cycle is beyond me. Like, we should be teaching all teenagers this. The third thing I really hope you got from this is that if you are perimenopausal, the 28-day ketobiotic reset that I showed here is just so important, or you're going to mess those sex hormones up. You're going to tank your DHEA, your testosterone, and your progesterone, and that's going to lead to a miserable menopausal experience. And then don't go so low that you forget about your veggies, because your estrogen needs to break down not only for your own happiness, but so that you don't build disease. And I started teaching this on my YouTube channel about a year ago to my resetter community. And people kept saying, could you put it in a book? Could you write it down? I had like all these miscellaneous videos. And so I kept thinking, yeah, I should probably get to that. And so I got to it and I wrote a book, and you can get a digital version on Amazon. It's called The Menopause Reset. I lay out exactly what I taught you guys here. I feel strongly that at 40, there are 5 different lifestyle steps that women need to take and adjust to meet these crazy hormones and the declining progesterone. One of those steps I taught you today, which is the keto variation. So now you got that step in it. And one of the steps is build a fasting lifestyle. So now you have that step. So you can read the book and get the 3 more steps. What I did in each step is I give you steps within the step. So if you're new to fasting, if you're new to keto, I walk you through with start here, then do this, do this, do this. So it really truly can be a turnkey book for perimenopausal women. And, you know, the postmenopausal woman, you can go back and course correct. You can change this, even though you didn't learn this information as you were going through menopause, you can go back and relearn it. So let me know. It's there for you guys. I really want you to embody this. One of the things, and I'll stop sharing my screen here for a moment. One of the things that was really upsetting to me a few years ago was just how the ketogenic diet got such a bad rap for women. It was like all of a sudden everybody needed to throw the keto diet out. All the women need to throw the keto diet out. And I feel like the answer is no. We just needed to think deeper on this. We needed more information. And what I just showed you today, hopefully, is that missing information. So if you watch me on YouTube, hopefully you know I always end every video with, as always, I hope this helps. And please don't give up on yourself, because the ketogenic diet is a gift to you. And when you know how to do it right, it can be a gift to your hormones. So I hope that helps.